Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our afternoon. Really fantastic morning. Really appreciate our keynote speakers and the phenomenal panel that we had. I'm Jack Haley. I'm the Vice President for Meetings and Membership here at AUSA. And let me just start by letting you know in the audience that your association has just topped 800,000 members. And General Brown has given me the goal of 1 million members by June. And I think we'll hit that. I think we'll hit that. Yeah, I think maybe it keeps growing, but part of our growth really has been in partnerships and other associations that we've partnered with, other like-minded membership-based organizations, and Quad A has been one of our first association partners that we had when we started this program a few years ago. I wanted to just introduce, because we really value the partnership and the friendship that we have with Quad A as we support Army Aviation and we support the total Army. So General Walt Davis, the Senior Vice President for Quad A, thanks for coming.
Well, on behalf of Major General Retired William T. Tim Crosby, the president of Quad A, and Mr. Bill Harris, our executive director, General Brown, AUSA, thank you so much for giving us a couple minutes. So General Brown did wire brush me on membership, and partnership already on the Quad A, but and you probably told Jack to make sure you let him know exactly how many members we have. But anyway, we are like-minded associations, and we share very much common in terms of our mission and the imperatives and or pillars that we kind of stand on as an organization. And so ours simply is to do that which is important and necessary to take care of the Army aviation soldier and their family. And we do that through various mechanisms. First, if you talk about networking, much like we're doing here, we too, our association is on a rhythm where we provide the opportunity for networking for all of our members and those that are just part of the Quad A family. And so that's very, very important to us. Voice, I mean, it's very easy for us in terms of the messaging that we need to do as an association to draft off of our great branch chief in terms of the imperatives and priorities that they have, and whether it's through our magazine or other mechanisms to provide a voice so we can provide those forums for addressing those things that we need to do to take care of Army aviation soldiers and families and our members. And then, of course, recognition. We have a very robust program for recognizing the goodness that's in the aviation branch and all those that comprise it in terms of recognizing their performance for their skills and their attributes and that type of thing. So very strong in that. And then certainly for support, our association supports our 79 chapters that are worldwide by providing funding for their activities that are associated with what they're doing to take care of their membership and the people that are part of their chapters out in the local communities. We certainly provide support to separate organizations. Our Quad A Scholarship Foundation Incorporated, which has awarded over $9 million of scholarships to family members, to soldiers, to others for their achievement academically, and so that's very, very important, as well as to the other organizations, which was just established a trade certification and licensing LLC that we established that is led by Brigadier General Steve Munt, that provides an alternative opportunity for folks for doing other things other than going to college. And so another option for them. But again, 18,000 members plus strong, 79 chapters doing this very, very important work. And very, very proud of our organization, proud of our association with AUSA. And I will just make a couple quick plugs. We will, on the heels of AUSA Global, of course, we have our Quad A Summit in Nashville, 26th through the 28th of April, and we look forward to seeing many, many of you there. And I'd obviously be remiss of those 18,000 members that we have all grades, all components, government, civilians. Of course, we can't do much like AUSA without our great industry partners. I'd hazard a guess if, I asked, oh, how many members of Quad A? It's the same number of hands that are going to go up that were members of AUSA. But again, thank you very much for this. So on to the next session. I would tell a General Quinlan story, but you'll have to catch me at break on some more of those. But those are some good stories. They're all meaningful and all that. But you can see by the quality of leadership that our aviation branch has in the six pack. And as Max said, he's got three of the 6+1 here for that. But it's really incredible. And so to join that, I know I first had an encounter with you, introduced to you by one of my heroes, Major General retired Frank Tate. And he told me, he said, keep an eye on this guy. And I said, well, he's absolutely right. So you were probably minding your own business as the DCG for Ops in 8th Army. And the chief said, hey, we want you to get to the Aviation and Missile Command, take care of those 16,000 people that you're going to have and figure this stuff out. So without any further ado, Major General Tom Connor, Commanding General of Aviation and Missile Command.
I'm just gonna wait a minute for my 300 slides to upload. Yes, sir. We might get to all of them in the next 30 minutes, but in all seriousness, sir, thank you for the very humbling introduction, and thank you for the warm welcome from the team. And General Brown, sir, thank you, and thank AUSA for what they're doing to sponsor, and thank you to our sponsors for enabling these professional forums. There's no doubt that this enables us to have the collaborative opportunities to discuss, to understand, where the Army is, where it's going, and what are the risks that we're all facing together. So I appreciate everybody's attendance here. It's indicative of that sacred trust that we have, not only with the soldiers on the ground, but also with our industry partners to provide the best equipment for our soldiers so they fight and win our nation's wars. In keeping with the theme, of this forum, I'm going to talk a little bit about honoring our past, and then transitioning to the future that's in there. I'll take a little liberty. I'll leverage some stories. Some will be very factual. Some will be hyperbole. I'll leave it up to you to determine which one is which. But General Quinlan, sir, you made mention of George Washington crossing the Delaware River. General Miles was there too. And we. Ironically, we were just talking about that prior to your comments, and I thought someone else, remembered General Miles on the other side of the river without his rucksack. So I would like to start off by honoring some of the past, and one of my heroes is the late Major General Frank Tate, who had a tremendous impact on this branch, our Army, and all that knew him, and he is definitely a national treasure and someone who's missed dearly, and our hearts, thoughts, and prayers will always be with him and his wife, Bev. I'd also like to start by honoring some other heroes. Some of you may or may not know who Joseph Cribbins was. There's a few people in the room that remember Joseph Cribbins or has been to a Cribbins event. But again, it's always good to start off thinking about those that have come before us, the impact they've had, the conditions they've set, their innovative and creative ways to solve problems, and how they've been able to shape the environment for us. So we understand that, and we leverage that, and we use it as a starting point, and we don't make the same mistakes that people in the past have, or we avoid the mistakes that they have allowed us to avoid by the conditions they've set. So Joseph Cribbins, from a fellow New Yorkan who was a cavalryman, who participated in World War II, came back, joined Delta Airlines, then got solicited back in the Army, was in the National Guard, then came back on active duty and served in the Korean War, Vietnam War, became a Department of the Army civilian. And really, if you think about what he did, is he was known as the right before the Ohio State University came about, right? He was known as the aviation maintainer. And that is, a title, to kind of think about. Even before aviation was a branch, he was having a tremendous impact, on the aviation maintenance and sustainment community. He set the conditions by moving mountains of parts, people, and equipment all over the Pacific Theater to enable the operations, to enable our soldiers to fight and win our wars. So again, an unsung hero. I know General Taylor's taken off, but those operations people should remember what Eisenhower said, that this campaign, this battle was fought and won by some logistician, a few months ago. And that's true. And that's something to think about is as we transition to the future, how do we set the conditions today to ensure that we are not limiting the operational reach and capabilities of our force? And we have some challenges, and we'll talk through some of those, throughout the rest of the discussion here today. Another story I'd like to highlight is, this is, again, one of those combat, stories that I'll, because there's other people in the room, I'll make sure that it all stays true. But there I was getting ready to be a part of the 1st Brigade moving into Afghanistan. And out from the heavens came General Miles. And General Miles came with this big mountain of parts, this big mountain of tools, and additional maintainers and capacity. And I remember the conversation started like this. He probably remembers the conversation. He doesn't remember it was with me. He's like, "Son, get out your stubby pencil and let me know what you need, where you need it, when you need it, and we'll make it happen." And that culture, that leadership, sir, I just want to say thank you for doing that for our team. We would have not have been operationally successful as we were without your leadership and without the entire community reaching out and setting the conditions for us to support the soldiers that are on the ground and make sure we maintain that sacred trust with our soldiers. Although today we've got to think differently, because a few years later I was in Poland. I was responsible for 9,000 soldiers in 11 different countries. And I was waiting for General Miles to come out of the sky to drop off tank engines and Bradley wiring harnesses, all across the region. And we have challenges. We have challenges with supply chain. We have challenges with quality. We have challenges, with customs and setting the operational requirements. As we move smaller elements into different regions across a great geographical span, in a permissive environment, we have challenges maintaining readiness. And then thinking through how are we going to do this in a contested environment is something that keeps me up at night because I know that some soldier in the future is counting on us to think about these problems and set the conditions to enable them to fight and win our nation's wars in the future. But also balancing the challenges that we have with current readiness, and maintain the fleet and ensure that if asked to go tonight, we're ready to go. And we're ready to go with the equipment we have. We're ready to go with the equipment we have to sustain the op tempo required to fight and win. The operations that we as a nation are supporting in Ukraine, come with some lessons observed, and I know over time we'll figure out how to learn the right lessons and apply some changes, inculcate that into our force to ensure that we're setting the conditions for future success. I will share a little part of AMCOM. So the M part stands for, missiles. So you think through stockpiling ammunition, you think through stockpile reliability, you think through getting missiles, which are very expensive, halfway around the world and to meet the time of need, at the time to meet the demand, to meet the need, is challenging, but I'm very proud of what the team is doing in order to support those operations. But it's something to think about. How would we do this on a large scale indefinitely in the future? What capacity, what capabilities do we need to invest in today to set the conditions to ensure that we're able to fight that fight in the future? One of the questions I was asked earlier, and I'll tie it back into the discussion today, was strategic readiness. One of the things within my lane that I'm responsible for is our organic industrial base. Our organic industrial base is a strategic enabler, insurance policy, and part of the strategic readiness that our nation has available to it to react, to be agile, to scale rapidly, and to support the requirements that are needed by the warfighter. We have industry. We've got great industry partners. We've got good private-public partnerships that we work together to solve some of the complex readiness and supply demands that we have. But scaling that, the organic industrial base really is the first part to be able to rapidly build around with capital investment in to ensure that we're able to do that. If you think through the Ukraine, discussion, you think about where is the capacity in our nation now to rapidly expand the production of munitions. Where does it exist? And it's building, and we have it in our organic industrial base, and we're rapidly building that capability, capacity in other places as well. But the starting point is our organic industrial base. CCAD is one of two depots that I'm responsible for in my command. And CCAD, as part of AMC's campaign to modernize the industrial base, to ensure that the future industrial base has the capacity and the capabilities to sustain our future weapon systems. In General Daly's efforts, along with, are designed to ensure that we modernize this over the next 15 years to be able to support the capital investment, the construction, and the tooling required to ensure we've got an agile workforce and the capability to support the warfighter and the equipment of the future. In CCAD alone, the current capacity, we've got about 3,000 employees, of which about 40% of them are currently working on the UH-60 Victor line. The rest of the work comes from other places: battle crash damage assessment, component repair. We repair about 6,000 components a year. I'm sorry. We save the Army a significant amount of money with this capability and capacity at the depot. Last year alone, just on our engine repairs and return to the force, we saved over $100 million for the Army. Our transmission repairs and replace, we've saved over $15 million for the Army. That's big money that we can invest in other places that the Army has this capability and capacity to repair and rapidly return components to the force to maintain our readiness across the board. The things that we're doing at our depot is we're modernizing them with capital investments in the facilities. Some of the facilities that we're investing in is a new powertrain and engine facility to ensure we have the capability to support and repair the next generation of engines that are on our next generation combat systems, to streamline the processes and to bring the organic industrial base into the 21st century. The other capital investments we have is ensuring that we're building new hangar facilities to support new future aircraft, again, to streamline the process and to get out of the last century and bring the capabilities up to this century. We're also looking through agile and adaptive capabilities, investing in the workforce, ensuring that they've got the skills and the capability to, through high velocity training, to be able to train and build the skills of the employees that work at our depots. Our depot, again, about 3,000 soldiers, 41% of them are veterans. And they've averaged time at the depot is a little over 13 years. So teaching them and bringing them new skills and new capability is we're investing in to ensure that they're able to adapt to the requirements of the next generation weapon systems. A few of them that we're investing in is fiber optic repair as it relates to airworthiness, fiber optic repair as it relates to obviously communications and data transmission within the airframes. Another place that we're investing in is to ensure we have agility in the workforce is composite repair, the depot becoming a composite center of excellence, where we can repair the future weapon systems made out of composite materials moving forward. We're also looking at tooling and space that's, smart space that's able to rapidly change and transform based off of the equipment sets, the equipment that we're maintaining moving forward. In our Letterkenny depot is where we do most of our missile work and our radar work. We're building an anechoic chamber up there to ensure that we have the capacity to test and validate our radar repairs for our ADA systems. We have great private-public partnerships with many companies to leverage the capacity and capability at our depots to ensure that we dampen the risk associated with the supply chain and also the repair requirements for our weapon systems. Those are places that I'm concerned, that's one place where I'm concerned about the strategic readiness, and the strategic investment to ensure we have this capability in the future. It's our organic industrial base. Second place I kind of alluded to a little earlier is a supply chain. The supply chain, the mountains of supplies that are coming that met us in the past to meet the operation requirement become a big strategic risk. If you look at some of the targeting efforts that we are, or I should say that are being employed against other nations and other places, and what we would do to an adversary, we would go after their supply chain. We did it in World War II. We went after the shipping lanes with our submarines to create a supply burden and reduce the capability and capacity of the force that we had to fight on the battlefield. Well, the future is no different. The extended ranges and the extended intel will really prevent us from stockpiling ammunition, repair parts, and repair capability. We're going to have to be dispersed. We're going to have to be dispersed at echelon. We're going to have to move from places of sanctuary, into areas and where we can operate for short periods of time with limited repair requirements to ensure we can maintain the op tempo needed to support the soldiers on the ground. To do that, we're modernizing our supply chain today. We're thinking through, so AMC's initiative is about supply chain optimization. We're changing how we manage the supply system and creating a way that's able to be more efficient, more effective with our supply chain optimization. As we start to think about the future, we're setting conditions today with spiraling and investing in digital threads, the digital twin efforts to understand where we can build digital design, and we can leverage digital design to ensure that we understand mean time between failure rates, we understand reliability better, we understand how to maintain that equipment at a higher rate that's in there. We've got investments with academia, we've got investments in our own facilities, and we've got investments with private-public partnerships to get after some of this future thinking through how do we manage the supply chain, how do we do it digitally, how do we create an environment where we're not just counting on parametric data, sensor data, but we've got digital design, digital engineering, and we can leverage the capability to maintain and also predict and forecast better than we have in the past. I'd like to, maybe tell one more story. So I'll pick on the one Navy guy that might be in the room. So Davy Jones. Many people have heard of David Jones, but most people attribute David Jones to either the father of the Navy and or David C. Jones, which was the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. But I would like to talk about David M. Jones, which was an Army Air Corps service member that most of you in the room have probably never heard of. David M. Jones was one of the Doolittle Raiders who ran out of fuel after bombing Tokyo and crash landed in China and E&E'd to India. After he was 6 months later, he was recovered, came back, and for recognition, they made him a squadron commander of a North African strategic bombing squadron to bomb German targets in North Africa. He was shot down, captured by the Germans, and taken to Poland, where he became one of the tunnel commanders for the Great Escape. Pretty impressive individual. Two historic events, the Doolittle Raid and the Great Escape, attributed to one person who was actually at both of those that we've never heard of. Pretty amazing. What's more amazing is what this man did afterwards. So after the war, he became an experimental test pilot. And he used his practical experiences to drive change and to innovate, became a test pilot on the Air Force's aero refueling, capabilities. And I'll use some hyperbole here, but, I'm sure he was drinking some brown water and he said, you know what, we don't want the future soldiers or airmen running out of fuel. So let's figure out how do we create a way to do aerial refueling. After he solved that problem, I'm sure he also thought that it probably doesn't make sense to do low-level bombing. We probably need to get to some high altitude. So he became a test pilot as part of the Air Force's strategic high altitude bombing campaign and helped solve another critical problem that we had to face where the enemy would operate. Once he was complete with that, he then moved on and became, got promoted. He started working as a liaison with NASA, and he became part of the Apollo recovery operations. And I can just imagine him sitting on an on an aircraft carrier with big binos, looking around all these helicopters, planes, ships, looking for a capsule with a parachute, and saying to himself, we probably need to figure out some way to get, something to fly up in outer space and come back and be reused. Pretty amazing. He became the deputy director of NASA as part of this, and led the efforts towards the shuttle program. David M. Jones, American hero, sounds like the Forrest Gump of the military innovation, but the big takeaway is we have to be creative, we have to be innovative, we have to figure out how to solve the complex problems that face, our soldiers today, so they don't have to face them in the future. Thank you for your time, and I'm open for questions.
Hey, sir, Mike Hill, McKinsey & Company. You mentioned the digital design, digital transformation efforts, and primarily in the material world that we're seeing, that's at the acquisition level. I wonder if you could just take another second and explain how you believe that the maintenance world and AMCOM, maybe CCOM, TACOM could benefit from understanding a little bit more around the digital space.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So with FEL efforts, part of it is, a new acquisition, moving into the era of digital design, digital engineering, modeling, understanding, the systems capability that's in there. We're actually taking and partnering with Sikorsky. We've got a UH-60 that we're working with, doing a digital twin effort on. And it's reverse engineering, or it's not reverse engineering, it's getting a digital model of that, partnering with the intellectual property, and partnering with the OEM to determine what we can use that data for. And there's multiple different places where we can leverage it for. So one, currently today we're using telemaintenance. So we're talking people how to repair equipment halfway around the world, with limited access to maintainers with limited skill. So the thought process would be partnering with the OEM is how do we then take that digital design, that digital modeling, and then getting away from ITMs and transitioning to a digital virtual, maintenance book where we could put on a set of VR goggles. We can leverage the digital design, to be able to walk through maintenance instructions and maintenance work packages using the 3D modeling that comes from the digital twin efforts. The second part of that is, again, specifically with our agreement with Sikorsky, is leveraging the OEM, that's their intellectual property. It's working through agreements on how do we then understand fatigue. What do we determine about fatigue modeling in the past? How does this change today? What can we do to anticipate maintenance requirements? How do we change some of our maintenance requirements based off what we're learning through this new digital engineering and digital design? Is that fair enough? And we're very happy, and we really appreciate the work that we've had, specific on the UH-60 Lima, with understanding and working through this process. We should have a delivery here pretty soon, in next quarter, with what the capabilities are. The next part of that is how do we reverse engineer and inculcate that back into the rest of our fleets? Where does it make good business case for everyone to work together, provide a win-win opportunity for us to dampen some of the readiness challenges that we know we'll have in the future?
Hi, Brian Everstein with Aviation Week. I had a supply chain / depot question.
Yeah.
Across the DoD, there have been some issues with parts installed causing fleet groundings. The Army had the Chinook issue last year. The Air Force had just had KC-135s and F-35 ejection seats, all grounded by defective parts being installed at depots. How are you working to ensure the transparency, the supply chain resiliency, to ensure that what is being installed on your aircraft is right and will keep the fleet flying safely?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the part that was installed on the T55 engine, was not, it was the wrong part, but it was the wrong part that was in the supply chain managed by DLA in this case. The depot artisans were installing the part that was called for. It was just the wrong part in the overall supply chain that's in there. So the question becomes is, the difference between quality and parts, right? The challenge that I think we have is quality parts, right? Parts lasting and the right parts lasting, as long as they're supposed to last. And that's through production, that's through manufacturing. So what we do is we have teams, that go out, we've partnered with industry. We go out, we inspect. They have their own quality assurance departments within the production facilities based off of the different vendors. We catch and they catch. Again, very, very happy with the OEMs and their catching of escapements before it enters the supply system. And then we go with our flight safety management personnel and we inspect to ensure that there's a follow-up inspection that's in there. With respect to the O-ring, that was a supply transaction that occurred that mislabeled the part number in the wrong bin.
Hi, Jen Judson with Defense News. Good
Hi,
to see you,
Jen, how are
sir.
you? Likewise.
So I was wondering if you could give us a little bit more of a breakdown in terms of the organic industrial base strategy, the plans to modernize there. I believe over a 10-year period, maybe it's 5. Can't remember off the top of my head. But can you give us more of a sense on what is being spent to modernize on the aviation side of that, since the organic industrial base covers much more than that? And then just to follow up, how are you preparing for maintenance at depots, and what do you need to be doing in the coming years to prepare for FLRAA to bring that into the force?
Yeah, so Jen, great question, and it's great to see you as well. So just a couple things. So the AMC plan is a 15-year plan. It's to modernize all the depots, and it's about the question becomes is it's not fully funded, right? So before I get ahead of Congress and Army senior leaders and funding requirements, but we've laid out the funding requirements to modernize the depots that's in there. What we have been investing in is a new hangar. Our powertrain and engine facility, it's 25% complete this year. We're starting the next phase to build the other half of that of that facility, and then continue investment over the next few years that's in there. And FLRAA. So part of this investment is to ensure that we're able to support FLRAA when it comes online. We recognize that we've got to get out of the last century, move into this century by setting the conditions with tooling, with hangar space, and also with agility in the workforce by creating the opportunity to repair composites and also repair fiber optics in particular.
Sir, Lieutenant Colonel Borali, I just was going to see what your take on fighting dispersed is. What's the biggest obstacle to battalion and possibly lower fighting in a dispersed fashion?
Yeah, so it's a great question, right? So there's many challenges with fighting dispersed, and I think fighting dispersed, and I know General McCurry's team is working really hard to help set the conditions with what the future force looks like. But I'll just lay out some of the challenges. So even in a non-contested environment, fighting dispersed means I've got limited maintainers. I got limited experience within those maintainers. I've got to distribute those over multiple different locations. The second thing is I have limited test sets. Again, I've got to move those test sets to multiple different locations in order for those to test the equipment that's there. I've got limited repair parts. the more repair parts I have, the more trucks I need, the more, containers I need to move all these locations, the bigger target, the bigger footprint that I have that's along the way. Distribution, right? So the last tactical mile, is usually one of the most difficult things to solve. There's one thing about getting, a part to the SSA, another thing to get it, to, a maintenance facility, but getting it out to that platoon that's, that's by themselves in a different location is difficult. All that is in an uncontested, environment. We talk about contested logistics. The contested logistics is really the environment. You're conducting logistical, or sustainment operations. It just depends on what the environment that's in there. We can't wish away the enemy and think that it's not going to be contested along the way. So those are some of the challenges associated with, sustaining, I'll just say, a platoon element in, that's distributed, that's out there. But I think the best way to get after it is to build the capability within, your formations to be able to extend the operational reach, of your formations, to be able to move to very rapidly, as General Taylor, talked about, the agility to move, to a location, be decisive, and then once complete with the mission, break contact, and then move back to a place of sanctuary. One of the reasons why reach, is one of the, proponents, one of the key, lines of effort for our future, investments. But great, that's a great question. And then last part is in contested. How do you protect all of that? How do you protect that from being seen? How do you protect that from being interdicted? Becomes a challenge. Like I said, General Miles parachuting out of the sky with, with parts, tools, and people, that's going to be challenging as you go out to different platoon level operation locations.
Sir, thank you for being here. Please give General O'Connor a big round of applause.
Before I go, I just want to say thanks to the whole six-pack, and really thank you again for your attention, and for all those that have come before us. Thank you for what you've done to make our Army and our branch great.